when we had a family division, I moved out of the textile business. So you would have said, why did you give up your father's business? But that's fine. I mean, my job, I can't be attached to something which is. So the Gita says you don't get attached to anything which changes, and everything in the world changes,
Wow.
except the Lord. So you only get attached to what doesn't change.
To everyone watching, this is a moment, this is a conversation for all of us. Today we are talking to Mr. Ajay Piramal, and I don't have to introduce him, and I just don't have to waste anyone's time introducing. We all know him, we all look up to him, we all look up to the businesses that he's built and the leader that he is. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of learnings for all of us. And then with that, Mr. Piramal, I want to ask you that at the age of 29, you took over as the chairman of the Piramal Group. That age, at that early age, what did it mean at that time to you?
I was forced into it. It was not that by choice I got to the leadership because of circumstances. And that was there because, my father passed away early when I was 24, and then it was my brother who was also very young. He was aged 34 itself, and he passed away. And therefore, I was actually just thrust into that. And frankly, I didn't think much about it at that time. I just took on the job. If you want to be really honest, that's what I do. I didn't think too much about it, just one day at a time. I think that's the best way to do it.
Wow. So that brings me to the question that at the age of 22, your father asked you to look at the precision tools business, Miranda Tools. And that's too young. And this I'm asking because there are so many young people today taking that responsibility. How did you go about it? What went in your mind?
So I think that I must actually give credit to my father that he probably in my own mind, I think he foresaw that he saw to it that probably in the future that he may not have a very long life. This is my own feeling, and therefore he thrust this upon me. It was fortunately a well-run company. It was performing well. It was a profitable company. So you do not have the sort of crisis that I had to face later on in life. So it gave a lot of confidence to me to build. And so it was like investing into growth. And I made lots of mistakes when I think about it. But that was, I think, my father just gave me the opportunity to grow. And actually, I started in 78 January, and in 79 March, my father passed away. So literally 15 months. So, but I think it was a great opportunity. And I feel that whatever entrepreneurship I have is because of an early experience, which was in a company which was doing well. So I felt, like you're in a successful business.
1988, transformed from textile to pharmaceuticals. Then in 2010, one of the most historic exits to a bought group. I want to ask you how, again, in your decision making, when one has to go back in your decision making and choices that you made, because it has turned out to be so significant. How did you go about it, and what can we expect now?
So how do you go about it? In some ways, I think what is important I've recognized is that one has to read beyond the headlines of any, whatever you read or whatever you see on TV and what people say. So you have to go beyond that. And one has to, that's where I think that makes the difference. So let's say when we moved from textiles into pharmaceuticals, that was a time when everybody in pharmaceuticals, and we acquired a multinational business in India. At that time, everybody, all the multinationals thought who were in the pharma space that India was not a great place to be in because they were really, the sales were not growing. The margins were low. There was no patent protection. There was price control. So everything negative they thought about. Similarly, Indian companies were not interested in acquiring
Hmm.
multinational, because they felt that their costs were very high and they did not show any growth. So, but beyond that, I think when one went into a little more detail, this was all the headlines. You realize that actually pharmaceutical was a growth sector for India, mainly because still the reach of modern medicine was limited, and it had to grow as India was growing, and that the costs were high. But that's also because, frankly, they were not being run well. So, if one could
Hmm.
run the businesses well, you could have got both top line growth as well as restricts the cost. So, recognizing that, and that's where I feel sometimes that makes the difference between a decision. And very often, at that time, there were not that many consultants, but otherwise, even consultants just give the same view which is available in the marketplace. So
You
that's
know,
why when we sold out to Abbott in 2010, everybody pitched the market at a much higher than what it was. And every multinational, I think they must have taken advice from the same firms, all felt that it was a very exciting place to be in. But we realized that the value was not as much as what we could have done otherwise. So that's how it is.
did you have this ability early on, or were there circumstances and people in your lives or situations which helped you hone this skill about you? Because not many people, and I'm talking about, these are decisions you would have taken and you would have to take when you were very young, right? How did you sharpen this with time, or you had this with you from early on?
I don't know. I'm honest. I don't know how. But if I give you some other answers, you'll say that's how. But I don't know. But I think what's important, let's say today, if I look back, is to actually really be in contact with people who are really wise.
Hmm.
So to have an open mind to listen to people who are wise, and then make your own decision, because nobody can make the decision for you. You have to make it. So you have to have a point of view. The way I develop a point of view is meeting different people. I may not agree with all of their points of view, but I think just pick up points of view from people who you think are wise and who have had a track record of being successful and a track record of being honest in giving their feedback to you. So that's the only way I think. And of course, one has to read, one has to understand what's happening in the environment and then take a call.
In your illustrious 32 years of journey with Piramal Group, if you had to tell everyone watching today, what are one or two moments which you think from a business standpoint, the decision you took or something that you did for Piramal Group, which you are most proud of?
First of all, I mean, I've been in business now for more than 32 years. Let me correct that. But
Okay,
that's fine.
sorry, sorry.
I started in 77. So be that may. I think, first of all, I'm not proud of anything because I don't like that word. So, because
Hmm.
one can't be proud. I think to me, humility is really important. And I think one of the lessons I've learned is that if one is proud, you'll never be successful. Or at least I've found that it's not easy to be successful because you have to be humble enough to listen to everybody's views. So, what am I happy with? I think the decision that we took in terms of entering into the pharmaceutical industry made a big difference as far as I can see. Because to move at that time from textiles into pharmaceutical was a big
Yeah.
difference. It is like chalk and cheese. They're 180 degrees apart.
Yeah.
So to go that time and then to build a good, successful pharmaceutical business where you had built a business on really strong values was, I think, that to me has been a very challenge, which has been a very interesting part of what I have done. I think to that extent, I find that to me is the most satisfying. We have still a good pharmaceutical business which is actually bigger than what it was when we sold out in 2010. It's three times bigger in terms of sheer size. So, in that sense, I think that has been to me a satisfying part of my journey.
Or for all said and done, the economy is so opened up. There's so many things happening. How do you look at opportunities?
So, one another big area that we are in is, let's say, in financial services, and I look at it as a huge opportunity. I mean, with all that's happening around the world, if you look at it, the reach of the financial services space or reach of lending in India is still very limited. If you go beyond the traditional means of financing, you'll find that many people are still relying on informal modes of financing, whether it's through money lenders, whether it is in the largest cities like Mumbai to even the smaller towns, when people are paying exorbitant rates
Yeah.
of interest. And if for an economy to grow, for a person to prosper, debt is very important. And to get debt at the right time, at a reasonable cost is important. And I think if we can satisfy that through our financial services business, then that will be a big plus. As I see it, it's not only, it's not only hopefully making profitable for us, but it also helps build up the economy of the country, build up so many lives. I've seen that if we had not been debt in our own lives, if we had not taken debt, our business would not have gone where it is. I mean,
Yeah.
when we acquired pharmaceuticals, it was frankly totally on debt because our business was going through a difficult time. But the fact that we could raise debt and then grow it. Similarly, I see it in the lives of all people, small or big. You look at a person who's in the vendor selling vegetables in on the streets of Mumbai. The
Yeah.
amount of the cost of finance for them is on a daily basis. They are paying several a lot of money is being paid by them just to get their life going. So if they can get access to reasonable debt at a reasonable cost, I think that makes a difference. So I see huge opportunities there, but there are so many opportunities in India all over the space. That's a good thing in an economy which is growth oriented, which is an economy with a young people.
That there's been so many investments, and especially I'm talking from the VC and investment world in the lending space. We've still not seen that kind of growth because bad debts have been a challenge. And how do you think, you thinking about it?
No. So bad debts has been a challenge in an economy which is still, I mean, it goes through fits and starts. So it is a challenge, and one has to maneuver around it, I think. And as you learn here, I feel it's technology on one side, but also sheer experience on the other. One has to
Hmm.
go through a lot of learning, and sometimes it's expensive. We ourselves have learned, frankly, but that's what has to be done. You just need to look at risk. You need to see how much you need to grow and balance. So at one side you look at risk, on the other side you look at growth and profitability, and you find a fine balance. And that's what the whole challenge is about. And that's there in India. It's there all over the world. Let's face it.
Mr. Piramal, I have to ask you this. You said Bhagavad Gita is the best management book. Tell us what makes you say that.
No, I look at it, whatever is practical and whatever is, what you can put into practice. In my own life, I've seen it. So first, we have to recognize that many people would think that the Gita, okay, it's philosophy, so you have to, hear it, understand it under the tree, go into maybe the Himalayas on the banks of the Ganga and listen to it. That's not true. If you see where was the Gita taught and to whom it was taught, the Gita is a lecture given by Krishna in the midst of a battlefield to Arjuna. Arjuna is a young person, below 30 years of age, the finest archer of his time in the midst of the battlefield. So why is it done there? There's a reason behind it. Is that in everybody's life, we are in a battlefield. And what are the answers? How do you solve issues in the battlefield is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. At the end, in the beginning, Arjuna is one who is given up to fight. And at the end, becomes he says, I will fight, and he's really motivated to do that. So similar, that's why there are so many lessons that have been taught there. So if
Yeah.
all of us are in a fight and all of us feel dejected at times, and then we have to get up and fight.
Piramal Group stands for, as I said, goodness, success, profitable, and a brand that India has looked up to. What does it take to create? One is, of course, the profitability and the success, the business success, but how do you create a brand which is so self-sustaining and which is clean, looked up to, and people respect over the years?
I think rather than talking about it is really action. So one of the things that has been very important for us is been the values and the purpose. And frankly, I have found that if you have good values and you live by them, practice them, then they actually make a lot of good economic sense as well. So I always tell our people that actually values create value in the long term. In the short term, sometimes you may find that it's expensive to live by values. So let me take an example. Again, when we entered into pharmaceuticals, we had a agreement with the multinational AstraZeneca that when we are going to take over their business in India, we will still maintain the quality standards that they have because these are all international brands. And secondly, we will not export in their brand names because the costs in India are much lower in manufacturing compared to anywhere else in the world. So this was written in the agreement, but we could have always gotten out of it. But we said no, let's do what we have committed to. So we invested in a plant, and I can tell you at that time we invested in a plant. The total investment was as much as the turnover of the business that we had acquired.
Wow.
Only because we wanted to have right quality. And we sacrificed, we did not go into exports because that was what it was given. But this had a big impact because after that, there were so many multinationals which all wanted to exit out of India. And all of them, or a majority of them, came to us first. And we actually acquired them at a much lower price than what even somebody else was giving. So it created economic value. And then when we exited out from the domestic business in 2010, that was after 22 years, yet the reputation was there that we would do things right, that we got the highest valuation. So here it is, because of values, which at one time was expensive, because you had to spend in creating a new plant, you had to forego exports, but you got value because you bought cheaper and you sold higher. So this is just one example, and there are several such examples I find. So therefore it is, I think that living by values, living by purpose, not only does it make economic value, but I think you also have people who are working with you feel happy to work in an organization which is, value based. So you attract right quality of people, and you also make actually you do economic value as well. So
Wow.
it's a win-win.
What are one or two things that when you look back, then you think, oh, those were the mistakes, and these are some of the things I learned from it?
Let me say that one of the mistakes we made when we went into the financial services sector is to grow too fast. I think when you are doing the lending business, one has to be more conservative in lending. And therefore, I think the growth was too fast. And unfortunately, the circumstances around us, the environment changed significantly. So we had to go through some challenges. But I think so. What I would say is that, I've learned that we have to be a little more conservative, especially when it is in a financial services business. So I think to me, that's a big learning.
You are investing in new businesses, startups with Montaigne Ventures. Can you tell us about that?
So that's just that's again a sort of just like a venture fund, just to look at new businesses. It's also an opportunity to keep in touch with what's happening. The world is moving so fast, and once if you meet with younger people and you get newer ideas today, because it's impossible otherwise to keep track of what's happening. And every day there's so much of excitement. So that's the reason why we.
Mr. Piramal, you've had focus on philanthropy, on helping, and on different things for the country to do different things through Piramal Foundation. Can you tell us about Piramal Foundation a little more?
So I think one of the main purposes, the purpose of our group is to do well and to do good and to make a difference, a positive difference into the world around us. I think that is very, very important, because our belief is that when you are a human being, after you become a human being, after several hundreds of thousands of lives, you get a human being. And when you are a human being, that's the only living thing which has the power to discriminate between what is right and wrong, and which can change the world. If you are a animal or something, what do? There are only 3 or 4 things you do. You eat, you sleep, you procreate, and that's it. You hunt for your food. But as a human being, you can make a difference. And therefore, that's the foundation that was the basis for our foundation. Again, we believe that we are more privileged than most people in the world, and more so in India. More than 99 point whatever percent people, we are better off. And most of the people working with us are better off. You're better off because you've been born in a family. For whatever reason, you are where you are. And there are others who have not got. So it's our obligation to do something for society. So that's what we've done. And we are doing. We are doing it in the space of education. We are doing it in the space of healthcare, in providing clean drinking water, and giving youth leadership. So these are some of the areas we are working in. Our belief in the foundation has been that innovation can only take place in a private foundation. And therefore, if you have to make a change in the country, even after 75 years, you find that some of the basic needs are not being met. And that can only be done if we innovate and find solutions. So we do that in our foundation. We believe that to make a difference, you have to work on scale. So we work on scale. To work on scale, you have to work with government. So we believe in partnership with government. And fourth point we believe is that you cannot work unless you have people who have passion. So we recruit people who have a passion and who want to do this because they like doing it, not because as a job. So for all this, I think we made a significant difference. We are working with the governments of almost 22 states in the country. We are working with the central government. We are working in, as I said, we've touched, I'll tell you, some of these numbers may look a little high, but we have almost 200 million people have been touched by something or the other that we have been doing in this. We are now working with the tribal districts in India to have a collaborative on tribal health. We are working with the aspirational districts. The Prime Minister has identified 112 districts which are the most backward, but which are aspirational, as he calls it. We are working in all of them. Every year, we are recruiting more than 500 young graduates and postgraduates from the best universities across the country to come and work in our foundation. So,
as a leader, when you so closely built everything, how do you remain attached, and how do you remain, and where do you start looking at detachment and attachment? Because historically, world over, people who build have so much of attachment to their creation. How do you look at this? How do you think about it?
So that's where the Gita teaches you that you have to have attachment and detachment together. So, frankly, many people ask me this question when we actually exited from our domestic pharmaceutical business. But I can say with all honesty, we did it. And I mean, that is what was the best thing to do. And we did it. And there was, I mean, frankly, I didn't feel that great regret or anything in that. And many people said that, why do you want to give up something? So let's see, we have left many things. When the textile business, when we moved out, that was our family's business. And yet, first of all, when we had a family division, I moved out of the textile business. So you would have said, why did you give up your father's business? But that's fine. I mean, my job, I can't be attached to something which is. So the Gita says you don't get attached to anything which changes, and everything in the world changes,
Wow.
except the Lord. So you only get attached to what doesn't change.
If you had to see, and you've seen India, you participated in the growth journey of India, you have been one of the key players in this. Where do you see us?
I think I'm very optimistic about the country. I think that, yes, we went through challenges in the COVID, but if you look at it, I think given the constraints that we have as a country, we have done well. I mean, yes, last year when the COVID first came out, there was a lot of stress about how the migrant labor moved out. In the second COVID phase, there was stress that, yes, hospital beds were not available, oxygen was not available. But I think we got over as a country in all this. And by and large, have been able to contain the COVID spread better than most countries, I would still say. So I think I'm very optimistic. You see the young people that are coming up in India. And, look at, I mean, when I see the performance of some of the girls in the hockey team and I read the stories of these people they're coming from, I mean, it's really inspiring. This is a big change that has taken place in India over the last 10 years. I can see that change happening. So this is a positive news. The youth and the enthusiasm and just the tough people that they are there. So I feel that people will make the difference and we should get ahead more than what we are doing today.
Internally, in your own mind and in your own heart space, how do you define purpose?
I mean, as I said, one purpose is that you have to make a positive difference with the world around you. And that's important for people who are privileged like we are. And ultimately, the second purpose is to get true happiness. Everybody in life, there are only two things a human being does. One is pursuit of happiness, and the other is the absence of pain. You want to be away from pain and you want to pursue happiness. But the happiness that you pursue is within, it is not outside. And that's what if somebody can do, which hopefully, I mean, sometime I may hope to do that's what it is really. That should be the purpose.
If I had to ask you, after creating such a large, impactful enterprise, what's the big dream? What's the vision?
Instead of just doing the normal business, as the next gen takes up more and more responsibilities, I would do less time on business and do a little bit more, as I said, how to make a difference in the world, at least around us. Whatever little bit you can do, it's worth doing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Piramal. This has been so inspiring. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.